Hari Om. Let us continue with Grihastha Ashramaha. One can observe the religious emphasis laid on family life on a downturn and getting diluted these days. Families are tending to become unstable, and in many societies, family life as an institution is being questioned. Looking at the family from a purely materialistic angle, one gets a totally different picture. That is what is happening now. Activists in the women's lib movement point out that in the context of a traditional family setup, a woman looks highly dependent, especially economically. She is not empowered. Women empowerment being the thrust today. She isn't empowered to fulfill her personal aspirations. Look at how the trend is moving. Aspirations not for fulfilling her moksha purushartha, but her arthakama purushartha. Because society is more materialistically oriented. That is why that kind of approach. Therefore, they go on to say, therefore, women must become economically independent and empowered. Children, too, are being groomed in the same mold to be independent and empowered to pursue their materialistic goals. This is an unfortunate situation indeed. As long as materialistic goals predominate, it will lead to instability in the family institution and will gradually render it irrelevant. Therefore, the scriptures say religion is the primary purpose of Grihastha Ashrama. We have often heard this cliche which says a family that prays together, P R A Y S, prays together, stays together. So, when an institution of marriage, a Grihastha Ashrama, does activities, religious activities together, automatically everyone in the family is brought into the picture. Everyone is involved. Everyone uh, is asked to be part of the puja, and we as children we know what we experienced during our when our parents did um, uh, you know, a Vishnu Sahasranama puja at home, or a Saraswati puja at home, or a Vinayaka Chaturthi puja at home. Many of us have been involved in such pujas. We have, especially when the money or the ghanta is rung, we all would rush to be part of the final arati, and arati ottikano. We have to touch the flame and uh, place that bhavana on our own eyes. So all that happened when we were children. So that is the emphasis. Family that prays together lives, stays together. So therefore, the scriptures say religion is the primary purpose of grihastha ashrama. The word grihastha is derived as follows: grihe tishtati, home centered life. When this is the attitude, the family bond is looked at as a sacred bond blessed by God. The expression marriages are made in heaven says it all. The bond of marriage is sacred and determined by God's will. God alone has the right to dismantle it. Only when such an outlook prevails, there will be stability in the family. It is only in such an atmosphere can important values like titiksha, forbearance, tolerance, accommodation, forgiveness, trust, etc., be nurtured, which are required for transforming one's personality. Somebody told Swamiji that in some Western countries, while scrutinizing job applications, prospective employers look to see how long a person has remained married. They consider it an important qualification because it shows that the person is adjustable, forgiving, and tough. Otherwise, if this person is married for the seventh or eighth time, he is likely to change his job frequently. Look at the parameters that employers are looking at nowadays. A stable family or relationship requires titiksha or forbearance. A stable family is also required to raise emotionally healthy children. Research points out that disharmony and dislike prevail in unstable families. Children easily sense disharmony. Thus, Grihastha Ashrama is extremely important for the present and future generations. We now come to the third ashrama, which is called Vanaprastha Ashrama. It is a training ground for gradually withdrawing our activities. If we study our body, its activity peaks during youth and slows down as we age. In keeping with this trend, the mind too must gradually slow down to maintain mutual harmony, isn't it? Our minds must be trained gradually to appreciate seclusion, antarmukhatvam, antarmukhatvam, or introvertedness. Vanaprastha ashrama is a lovely training ground for receiving self knowledge. It is a stage in which the mind should turn inward to cap one's life with the all important knowledge of one's true self. A person reaching retirement age in the corporate world must prepare oneself for retirement, learning to accept the way of life and not way of life in retirement, in the retirement phase, and not develop any complexes. Otherwise, it can be quite a traumatic experience. People who have not prepared themselves sufficiently have even died due to retirement syndrome. Swamiji is so knowledgeable. He is really in touch with the current affairs, current happenings around us, which he beautifully relates to our teaching and helps us understand the goings on and the implications of what can happen as a result of not handling ourselves properly. He's beautiful in giving us very down to earth and practical examples. Vanaprastha Ashramaha is a well designed retirement plan for an active grihastha. It is a stage that prepares a person to gradually withdraw to a life of introvertedness and contemplativeness. And finally, for sannyasa ashramaha, where the focus is primarily on gaining self knowledge. Vanaprastha ashrami means the one who lives in seclusion even while living with one's own family. Vananam samuhaha vanam. Vane prakarshena tishtati iti vanaprasthaha. So here it would be worth recalling what Swamiji often says. He says, the physically taking to a particular ashramaha is not as important as following the sadhanas that are prescribed for each of these ashramas. So, it is immaterial whether you withdraw to a vanam or to a forest in vanaprastha ashramaha, and set up a, a thatched hut over there, and then have to sit down in upasana, etc., etc. Not really required. As long as one is able to adjust our routine during our time with our family, we need an unpreoccupied mind. Swamiji would always say this: unpreoccupied mind and quality time and mind. If we can achieve this in and through our family duties, that alone will help us to move on to both vanaprastha ashramaha and sannyasa ashramaha. This Swamiji emphasizes very often. We now come to the final ashrama, which is sannyasa ashrama, the fourth and final stage of life as envisioned by our scriptures is sannyasa ashrama. Sannyasa means giving up everything, renouncing everything, primarily one's ignorance and ego. So, renouncing one's ignorance and ego can be easily done in any of the other three ashramas also. It can be done in brahmacharya ashrama, it can be done in grihastha ashrama, it can be done in vanaprastha ashrama. It's not necessary that you have to become an ashrama sannyasi. This is what Swamiji means when he says that. One here's his famous sentence. One must be mentally prepared to lose the losable, as Swamiji often says. Inevitably, all our possessions will have to be given up to Father Time. A wise person understands the ephemerality of life and prepares himself mentally, mark the word mentally, to face any consequence. In sannyasa ashrama, one strives to gain self knowledge under the guidance of a competent acharya. It is the second stage of education, of spiritual education. The first being during brahmacharya ashrama. During the brahmacharya ashrama stage, one is trained in Dharma Shastra, a value based education, as we have seen earlier. In sannyasa ashrama, one studies moksha shastra to gain knowledge of the self and to attain the highest purushartha, namely moksha purushartha or shreyas. This then is sannyasa ashramaha. Ashrama sannyasa is when a person dons ochre robes and becomes a monk through prescribed rituals. Just as a person enters brahmacharya ashrama through rituals, through upanayanam, then into grihastha ashrama through rituals, the ritual of marriage. So also there is there are prescribed rituals for an individual to enter ashrama sannyasa, to take up ashrama sannyasa. So Swamiji says in conclusion, whether a person physically goes through all these four stages, every human being who follows our scriptural tradition, who is an astika, must mentally go through them. Let me repeat this oft quoted idea of Swamiji's. Whether a person physically goes through all these four stages, the Chaturvidha ashramani, ashramaha, ashramaha, every human being who follows our scriptural tradition and astika must mentally go through them. By saying so, Swamiji concludes this very these two important topics, namely the Varna Dharma and Ashrama Dharma, as they have been designed for the benefit of our society's growth and individual growth to ultimately achieve the Parama Purushartha, namely Moksha Purushartha. Hari Om. ॐ दुर्जनः सज्जनो भूयात् सज्जनः शान्तिमाप्नुयात् शान्तो मुच्येत बन्धेभ्यः मुक्तश्चान्यान् विमोचयेत् सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ